Millions of people have seen Ashton Kutcher as the witty tech, the silly heartthrob, or the charming prankster, investor, but that same man appeared as a witness in one of the most unsettling celebrity trials in contemporary history on a muggy spring morning in a Manhattan courtroom. Sean "Diddy" Combs was charged with a wide range of offenses, from organized abuse to sex trafficking. Once a member of Diddy's notorious Hollywood rap group, Kutcher had no choice but to testify. The silence that followed left the court in disbelief. Kutcher wasn't merely there to distance himself from Diddy. Rather, he was there to reveal something that no one had anticipated: a shocking admission, a betrayal, and a secret that could alter everything. This is the story of the day Ashton Kutcher turned witness. Even though the case was already full of shocking disclosures, the courtroom was abnormally tense. However, on day 9 of Ashton Kutcher's trial against Sean "Diddy" Combs, the room changed and there was a distinct type of silence. The media had been speculating for weeks that Kutcher's name might surface because years of photos, investments, and partying with Combs had resurfaced in the wake of Diddy's arrest, and Ashton's team had been working overtime to clean up the timeline, but no amount of spin could change what the prosecution had dug up. Kutcher's name appeared in correspondence, security logs, financial records, and most damning of all, a handful of videos seized from Diddy's compound. Ashton Kutcher, the prosecutor, started. Kutcher glanced at the screen, which was grainy, but it was him, his shirt slightly unbuttoned, his drink in hand, and a dimly lit room with faces blurred for privacy. He said, swallowing that was in 2009, the first of many confirmations, and as his testimony unfolded, a carefully curated public persona began to unravel. Kutcher spoke calmly at first, but there was a tremble in his tone. "I was friends with him," he said of Combs. "I looked up to him, but there were things I saw, things I ignored." He described how the so-called new Hollywood rat pack had formed. Diddy himself, Valderrama, Danny Masterson's son, Wilmer partying at first, followed by business, and then something else. There came a turning point. Kutcher claimed that I didn't ask enough questions, and that it changed from private parties to what I would describe as curated encounters. Kutcher paused when the prosecution questioned if he had ever seen criminal activity. "I didn't know what I was seeing at the time," he told himself. But now that he knew better, he acknowledged that Combs frequently had a distinct staff operating the back rooms. Ashton disclosed that he had signed numerous NDAs over the years, which I assumed was usual. He added, "Everyone did it." The individuals who confiscated phones escorted visitors to specific locations and collected NDAs on site. However, after the court played audio recorded during a 2013 party at one of Diddy's houses, where you could hear laughter and music, Ashton replied, "I don't think we should be filming this. Seriously, this is too much. Calm down. Everything is taken care of. They've already signed," said someone else. Turning to Ashton, the prosecution asked, "Who were you referring to?" Ashton finally remarked, "Some were models, some weren't, but they weren't told what was going to happen," as his hesitant gaze strayed to Diddy, who was sitting motionless at the defense table. It became evident that Kutcher had once been one of the former, but that he was now attempting to become the latter in front of a judge and jury. Ashton continued his testimony into the afternoon, this time describing the infamous years of the new Hollywood rat pack. By the end of part 1, Ashton's testimony wasn't just about Diddy, it was about complicity, about a culture of silence that rewarded those who played along and punished those who asked questions. Diddy Masterson's son Danny and Valderrama Wilmer, he stated, "We called it a new kind of brotherhood, but in hindsight it was a machine. There were whole rooms at those parties where only specific people were permitted in," and Ashton said, "You had to be approved." He related stories that, at the time, sounded glamorous, like private jets to secret locations and all-night benders in mansions without clocks or windows. However, these tales now took on a sinister tone. I didn't question the prosecutor who was approving. Instead, he was asked if he had ever seen anything unlawful or exploitative. Ashton exhaled loudly. "Not with my own eyes," he stated, "but I heard things and I ignored what I heard. I laughed things off. I told myself it was just rumors." He described one instance in particular where a bunch of young women were brought out for a private yacht party in 2012. He mentioned how the dynamics of the rat pack changed and Danny became darker, referring to Masterson's son as being more controlling and paranoid. He claimed that the most of them were models or influencers and that they had all signed. I remember laughing, but I shouldn't have. The court played footage from Diddy's 2009 white party, which Kutcher co-hosted and that I suggested. He acknowledged that we were promoting charity on the surface, but I believe that behind the scenes we were promoting something else entirely. He told the court that as time went on, even he started keeping secrets. You don't rise in Hollywood without learning when to shut up, because I was making millions of dollars and I had a brand that I didn't want to ruin. He also explained how guests who asked too many questions weren't invited back. There was a guest list and a blacklist you don't cross. Combs, Shah. He even brought up a worrisome interaction between a female guest and another celebrity whose identity was censored before court evidence, as everyone knew. When I asked her if she was all right, she replied, "They told me not to talk." That stayed with me. I'm here because I was part of the circle and I saw enough to know something was wrong and I didn't do enough to stop it, Ashton said, starting to cry a little. There was startled quiet throughout the gallery. Long seen as the likable idiot, tech-savvy investor, and doting husband, Ashton Kutcher was suddenly revealing a Hollywood secret that few dared to face, and things were only going to get worse. Kutcher's testimony changed from being about Hollywood rumors to being directly exposed. "What's a freak-off?" became a common phrase in courtrooms after being rumored for a long time in industry blogs and anonymous remarks. "It's an event Diddy would host," Ashton responded hesitantly when the prosecutor asked. Private exclusive phones taken, guests blindfolded. Sometimes it was presented like performance art, but it wasn't. "Not really." He talked about how he was asked to his first one in 2005 and added, "I brought a date within 30 minutes and I regretted coming." He claimed to have thought it was a theme party. He stated that there were hidden cameras, there were people who looked terrified, there were rooms you didn't walk into unless someone tapped your shoulder, but he would not go into detail about anything he observed. The prosecutor displayed information from a confiscated laptop. Ashton's name was on a digital guest list tagged green. "Light, it meant I was trusted," he explained. "I don't know what I did to earn that, but I knew what it meant. I could go anywhere." He also talked about receiving forms to sign that were created not only for visitors, but also for well-known artists, security personnel, and caterers. The courtroom listened as Ashton described how difficult it was to step away. "You're not just backing out of a party," he said. "You're backing out of a network, a power structure, a system." He recalled an instance in 2014 when he tried to stop going, and I told Diddy that I was done and that it wasn't for me anymore. He responded, "You don't quit, you're in or you're out forever." The NDA I signed in 2010 was 28 pages long, but he insisted that I signed it anyhow. I received a call from a mutual acquaintance that same week after Ashton claimed that 3 investment prospects had inexplicably fallen through, saying, "You made someone nervous." The courtroom broke for recess, but no one moved because Ashton Kutcher was finally speaking the truth for the first time in decades. Once the court resumed, the focus shifted from the parties to something far more calculated, the financial and business ties that had subtly fueled the lifestyle Ashton Kutcher and Sean Diddy Combs had built. This wasn't just about what happened behind velvet ropes, it was about what funded it. Ashton concluded with a chilling admission, saying, "I was afraid not just for my career, but for my family did." From early tech startups to massive venture capital plays, Kutcher had long been seen as a shrewd investor who had established himself as Hollywood's link to Silicon Valley. However, when he described the network behind it all, a pattern became apparent. Many of his deals overlapped with names that are currently embroiled in Diddy's 2009 scandal. He stated, "I was introduced to founders, fund managers, and Sean had connections most people didn't. He could open doors that even the biggest venture capitalists couldn't. I began to get involved in more than just entertainment." He explained how Diddy introduced him to a network of international financiers, brand developers, and nightlife moguls. They didn't just throw parties, they created businesses out of them. One name kept coming up, an anonymous investor connected to a number of Kutcher's endeavors who was later found to have direct ties to Combs' foreign business arms. Financial records revealed significant transactions that were only identified as consulting or event services, but the locations of those funds frequently coincided with dates of infamous private gatherings. Additionally, Ashton acknowledged that there were shell corporations, which he never completely understood. "They told me it was to safeguard intellectual property, but in hindsight, it was most likely to conceal who was actually providing the funding." What he said when asked why he didn't look farther, "I didn't want to be the guy that asked too many questions," so Ashton looked down because the money was good. The prosecution presented a history of investments that linked Kutcher to accounts that are currently frozen under federal suspicion, starting with his participation in a prestigious innovation cluster in downtown Los Angeles and ending with his engagement in a nightlife-focused app that failed soon after receiving millions of dollars in funding. Kutcher acknowledged that although the app's leadership had provided him with updates, the user data they had gathered, including names, whereabouts, and biometric information, had been covertly auctioned off. "I didn't know," Ashton said, "but perhaps I ought to have." He also described one eerie moment in 2016 when he was shown a pitch deck for a new app developed by one of Diddy's associates. It was supposed to help talent connect directly with producers, but there was a page about